change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference.
Okay, I feel like now we're just dancing, but we should probably
start.
talking.
We should start.
Okay, so we chose that song, Michael Jackson, "Man in the Mirror," because this is all about change, all about making yourself a better person.
All about, it starts with you.
It starts with you.
It starts
Think
with...
globally, act locally.
Amen.
All right, chapter 12. This is, by the way, I feel like we haven't said in a long time, but this is another edition of Where's My Latte?
Where's my latte? Here's my
There it
latte.
is. Mine's
Found
a nice
it.
latte today.
Cheers.
Cheers. So, in Chapter 12, Antebellum Culture and Reform, I would like to define antebellum very quickly for you. It
Yes.
means before the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
It means technically before the war. But, so this is period before the Civil War. Don't get caught on test with that. It's easy.
Right. That's always, it always trips up
Somebody.
the folks. All right, here we go. Ready? Let's get in. All right, let's start with art. Take it away.
What I love so much about this slide is that it's about art and yet no art on the slide.
Yeah, no art on the slide. There's
So
art
just-
on all the other slides.
You're going to have to like close your eyes and think about it, kids. All right, so national culture aspirations. This is just like how are we going to continue to define ourselves as Americans? We took out the U's, done. We've got
Check.
our folk tales appropriate because today is Halloween that we're taping this, so headless horsemen and all that. But we got to get into this art again. So we have a group called the Hudson River School. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I will be here and so will you forever. But basically the idea with the Hudson River School is they start to paint landscapes that are American, like obviously because they're in America, and they begin to move out west and continue to paint these pieces. And the pieces aren't just like ho-hum, like there's a tree and a mountain in the background. These are inspirational. There's always
Majestic.
there's always this bright light in the back that suggests like God is approving of something. It's when we talk about manifest destiny in the next unit. I mean, it is in a visual form what manifest destiny is, and it's inspirational.
Is this the painting of like Columbia moving across?
No, that's garbage. We'll
But
talk
I like
about
showing that one.
Yeah, I know.
But I show it
like
me
to
the
show it
best.
too, but it's kind of garbagey. If you think about like Thomas Cole,
Such a snob with your art.
yeah, that's right. There's a few others that are listed on our sheets, but honestly, Thomas Cole's like my jam. It's all about like we are American and we can do this and we're the best and nobody else can do it like us. Which, side note, reminds me of Between Two Caitlins with Feezer and talking about
Yes.
transcendentalism. So
If you haven't listened to
yeah.
it, she is a transcendentalism expert. She's
I
so
feel like
good
I'm
at
a
it.
transcendentalist. I'm a transcendentalist because of her now.
I think so too. I think I've been inspired.
But I feel like there's so many connections between transcendentalism and Hudson River School.
Yeah.
So if you have an extra few minutes, certainly listen to that and you'll be inspired. And then for those of you who have chosen not to take AP Art History for life choice, sign up next
upsetting.
year. Okay? Sign up next year.
Yeah, the entire time I was talking to her about transcendentalism, I just like pictured these landscape
That's it.
portraits of
Right.
of art or of America.
It's terrifying, and yet we're the ones who can conquer it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's great.
Okay, literature, non-transcendentalist literature. So we're looking at like James Fenimore Cooper, who is very similar, I feel like, to, I mean, this whole idea of Americanism is just like going out and exploring the West. When you're transcendentalist, it's more like getting one with nature. With this, it's just like being American and like chopping down trees and stuff. This Last of the Mohicans. Such a classic. And then also we have some more deep stuff like Walt Whitman, Herman Melville.
Leaves of Grass. So good.
Leaves of Grass, yes. It's less about like individual, like, because, how do I put this? It's less about like the individual and like intrinsic growth, and it's more about like democracy and like exploration and being more American that way, like politically.
So this movement is more about the romantic impulse, which romanticism is something that's also discussed in art. We have a whole romantic movement of art, and it tends not to be like, it sounds like super happy and like cupids and hearts and everything, but it's actually a very dark experience. It's about like your inner psyche, and how do you relate with nature, and I mean it's intense.
I mean, Poe is a part of this. Edgar Allan
Yeah.
Poe, like the Raven. That's
Yeah.
scary stuff. And then Herman Melville, Moby Dick, American classic. I was an American literature major for a year in
Also,
college.
I've never read Moby Dick, so I don't know what she's talking about.
Oh, so it's all about how like you as an individual can destroy yourself as an individual. So you got to like be one with America.
Is the whale yourself, or is the whale America?
The wheel is something a little bit non-appropriate for
Oh my gosh, stop
for
it.
American history.
Okay, moving on. I don't even want to go there. All right, so yeah, romanticism. It's like the goth kids would be part
Yeah.
of that. Mm-hmm. And I would adore them for that. Also, I'm wearing all black today, so yes.
So yeah,
I'm part of
goth
that.
kid right here.
All right, well, I think that's good.
Yep.
Check.
Moving on.
Visions. Oh, please stop it. This is my favorite. All right, guys, so
utopian
this
societies.
whole idea of like we should be like living differently, and we should be believing who we are and experiencing life differently, becoming more one with nature. We have this movement of a few different groups who are like, we just got to like get out of town. That modernized society and technology is sort of destroying us in who we are. And we would be better off, largely artistically, we would be better off if we sort of isolated ourselves or had a place we could all go, like sort of like band camp. Let's all go hang out together and let's just do our thing.
That's
But-
separate from America.
Yeah, and that thing is always a bit different. We should note that none of these work.
Right.
They all fail.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
Um,
and they have them in Europe as well. When I used to teach AP Euro, we used to talk about all these utopian communities, and they all fail
Right.
because you got too high of standards for what's about to happen.
Yeah. When you think that you're going to be a utopia, that's a lot.
You've
That's
set
a
yourself up to
hefty.
fail.
That's a hefty hat there. And these, we just said it, inspired by the Transcendentalist movement. That you must listen to Feezer's podcast.
So good.
It's amazing. Brook Farm. I feel like Oneida might be on this next step, but yes, it's later. But Brook Farm, established by George Ripley,
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
related to Ripley's Believe It or Not. Do we know?
I'm gonna guess yes, but
I think yes. That just seems like right up his
well,
alley to
and
me.
Brook Farm, was actually really big with the Transcendentalist, and so it's where a ton of them went to hang out, and you would kind of come and go as you pleased. But my favorite part about Brook Farm is that as committed as these artists were to this utopian movement, Brook Farm burned down. And they were just
Yeah.
kind of like,
All right, never
nah,
mind.
all right. let's
Moving
go
on.
back.
Yeah, they didn't rebuild it.
No.
It's not like it failed because like I think the New Harmony one was like an economic failure, or like the Shakers just ran out of people.
Yeah.
Like Brook Farm just burnt down, and they were like, well,
Guess that's done.
Utopia dead. Like can't do it anymore.
So, Shakers, Miss Knowles mentioned that they just didn't have people anymore.
Because-
They did not procreate.
They believed in celibacy.
Yes, all of them. So the only way their numbers would increase is through adoption. So they used to run really big orphanages. Yeah,
And adopt people, or just like rely on new members because
which
they couldn't create them.
right.
It's fair. That was a flaw, I
Yeah.
think, a fundamental flaw in that society.
One of my favorites is the Oneida community, Oneida, Oneida. They're way up north, way up north. Like they kind of move back and forth from the U.S. to Canada around New York. And they get together because they're like, you know what? We don't believe in any of these like
Traditional
social
roles.
standards and roles. Women are the mothers. Why? Why can't we all be mothers?
Yeah. So this like is linked in with like redefining the family and gender roles, which we'll talk about in class when we talk about feminism. That kind of, I guess, leads to that.
But people didn't like that. People
Oh,
it
no,
made
no,
people
no,
very nervous. Like, so they believed in polygamy, but in the sense that like anyone could marry anyone as many times as you want. So usually we think about like the Mormon community in polygamy, and we think, okay, so a man would marry multiple wives, but in Oneida, women could marry multiple husbands.
Right.
It didn't matter.
We're very liberal in this
It's
society.
very, very open. And what I love about the Oneida community is not necessarily all of that, because I always withhold judgment on these things. However, they did fund themselves through the making of flatware, silverware. So
And that still exists.
It still
like you can
exists.
still buy Oneida silverware.
it's like a big thing. I bet some of you have Oneida in your house.
Go check all your
So every time you take
silverware.
a bite of that turkey dinner,
Just think about human perfectibility.
yeah, think about egg push. Think about where's my latte.
Think about where's my latte.
Okay, great.
There's Oneida.
Oh, and there's shakers.
And the Shakers. And the
And
Mormons.
the Mormons. I feel like we're good.
We're solid here.
Okay. Anything to add?
Joseph Smith was killed by a mob.
Yeah, like,
and then
while
Brigham
he's
Young
in
took
jail.
over. Yeah.
Like
And then
out
Brigham
west.
Young took over. And then that's why they leave and go over to the West.
Yeah, get away from everybody.
Because everyone
Kill 'em.
was, I mean, very freaked out by,
Well, because they believed in polygamy.
and that was not that was not the norm here.
Oneida, kept themselves hidden,
Right. They were away. Mormons were
in Rochester.
They were kicking it with everybody else, but they would just believe something different.
and they were very secretive as a group.
Yeah, and everyone was kind of sketched out by that. So they were very passionately against the Mormon church. The Mormons are the Mormon beliefs are very interesting. I had no idea until I went in a Mormon hole last night. But yeah, Joseph Smith was unfortunately mob
Yeah, it's not pretty.
taken out, and Brigham Young took over and led them out west.
Yeah.
Brigham Young University.
Which also
Salt Lake
is
City.
one of the reasons why polygamy supported the Mormons so much out west, because it drew people, their numbers,
Mm-hmm.
their population would increase through polygamy.
Also, one of the beliefs that I found on the internet last night, per Mormon website, was that they needed to populate more, and that's why polygamy was such a big deal.
Yeah,
So you need to have as many wives as you can because you need to have as many children as you can.
right.
That's original.
So
original
they're like
beliefs.
the anti-shaker.
Yes, the opposite of the Shakers.
All right. Also, side note, Mormon Church does not condone polygamy anymore. In fact, you're kicked
Right.
out immediately if you're found to be practicing that. So, all right. Phrenology.
Phrenology. Temperance first, though. Temperance. I feel like temperance is more. It's more than just alcohol, but the alcohol is like the main focus of temperance / the banning of alcohol.
Yeah, so temperance, I like to look at it from the point of view of it tends to be, it is not an absolute, but it tends to be at this point a problem for adult white males.
Yes.
Adult white males that are either wealthier because they're on the East Coast and they got oodles of cash and free time, or it tends to be out west where farmers are sort of turning their leftover crops into alcohol. So it's kind of cheap. So those are sort of our two groups that it tends to be a main problem. Because of that, there are some things that start to happen when people are drinking a lot. You lose your job, you spend all your money. Some people are more inclined to be abusive when they drink. Not an excuse, by the way, but they tend to be more inclined to it. So instead of saying why are you beating your wife? Or why are you spending all your money? What's really going on in that head?
You don't want to say oh, I'm a bad person. You're supposed to
Right.
say, oh, it was the whiskey.
So now we can point around to other groups, and there's really two groups that we sort of identify, and one is immigrants.
Yes.
So German and Irish immigrants. It's not that they're drinking more, because Americans they're hitting the sauce.
They're hitting the sauce.
But it's not a social experience.
Yeah.
Where, Germans, it's like a family event. Everybody hangs out. The adults would drink, but the kids see it. It's not a big deal. It
Right.
just is what it is. And Americans, because our background in Protestantism, it's oh, that's
not
a bad
good.
thing. That's the bad sauce.
Yeah, the bad sauce.
So we start to say, well, immigrants are the reason all of this is happening. If the immigrants weren't here, we wouldn't have alcohol so prevalent, and we wouldn't be doing these things.
So it turns from we have a problem with the crime, poverty, whatever in society.
Bankruptcies.
We're blaming alcohol to. It's because the immigrants are bringing this tradition, this social experiment over here.
And it's messing with our American culture.
Yeah. Also, where we saw a lot of the alcohol was in farms, with German immigrants too,
Sure.
because they were turning the grain into whiskey and turning the grain into whatever beer is made out of. Hops?
and
Isn't that a
barley.
grain and barley? Don't they grow those there?
Probably.
They're grown.
But those are also centuries-old traditions for these families in
right.
Europe.
That they had brought over
Right,
from.
particularly German.
Right.
And the American folk they're coming from England, and they were working largely on farms.
All they drink is tea.
And they drink a lot of tea, guys. That's all they drink.
And maybe some wine.
They do start to drink gin a lot, but that's an art story. William Hogarth coming at you next year for those of you that sign up for it.
For those of you who decide to hop on the APR train.
So good. You won't be sorry. All right. So the other group that I like to identify is like, yeah, they start to blame this, and I feel them a little bit on this. Remember that thing called cult of domesticity? Women are like, middle class women have to be in the home. By being in the home and taking care of the kids, this forces the man of the house to be the only breadwinner. By being the only breadwinner, it's all on him. It's not like he has a second person that's helping out. It's a lot. I mean,
it's a lot on a man.
You know, and so they start blaming women, basically, in a sense. Like, not women, but like the cult of domesticity is forcing single breadwinners.
But who are the people that are forcing the cult of domesticity?
This is on you.
The man.
This is on you.
Whose fault is it?
America.
We're going to talk about feminism.
So, American Society Promotion of Temperance and Culture Divisions over Alcohol is the second one. We already did that. Never mind. That's immigration. But American Society for the Promotion of Temperance is an excellent piece of specific, factual information.
Get that in there.
You should, you want to talk about temperance? Throw a little bit of that in there. Also, the Maine law is something I mentioned with my class, which was that in Maine, like we get state by state changes. We don't really get federal changes
until the
big one.
The teens, the 19 teens.
Yeah, until the big
18th Amendment failure.
But we see that things like Maine law, like MAINE, the state, Maine law, the 15-gallon law, which is that you couldn't purchase alcohol in quantities of less than 15 gallons.
So you had to like take a lot home.
You had to like take a keg with you.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think that's right, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Keg or nothing.
Keg or no alcohol. And so this is like, well, who wants to buy that and lug it around with them? Plus it's super expensive. And people just get around it. It's not difficult. Basically, bars start buying the 15 gallons. And then they don't charge you for the alcohol. They charge you an entry fee.
Cover charge.
Done.
It's been around since the 1800s.
This is why we have it.
There you go.
Health
fads.
I feel like you got this.
Okay.
I've been talking a lot.
So we are starting to look a little. You have been talking a lot.
I'm so excited about this. Is my jam.
This is not my jam. I am much more of the political person.
Also, going back to the last slide, just side note, this really pits Protestants and Catholics against each other, and so it's not just immigrants, but when we look at like the Irish, who are largely Catholic, their drinking is part of their service.
Religious.
I mean, they're not getting like schlossed service.
They don't charge a cover charge to go to mass.
No. But Protestant Americans start pointing out like, oh, it's just even in your religion, and there's all these issues between Catholics and Protestants at this point. So
got mad beef.
All right, I'm sorry.
All right. Anyway, back to health fads. What a big issue during this time period was cholera. Yellow fever. But we don't have, this is the mid 1800s, early 1800s, and we don't have antibiotics. We don't have, a lot of stuff. And so we start turning to like, especially brought on by this rise in cholera, Love in the Time of Cholera. Isn't that a poem or a book or something? I don't know. I should know.
But shrugging my shoulders.
She's shrugging. But we don't have medicine, mind you. We still are just trying to like find out new fads that are trying to cure this. We get real big into sulfur, trying to find like hot springs to sit in to cure us, because sulfur is like
cure.
Yeah, the water cure. Yeah. Now the water cure though.
Is that just like spas?
That's just no. You either like a cold bath will help you, or a hot bath will help you, or here you go, sitting. The middle, sitting in wet sheets.
Oh.
Isn't that so gross? And that was supposed to cure your ailment. But I feel like that's just like pneumonia waiting to happen. That's what my grandma would be like, dry your hair, you're going to catch pneumonia. Miss Claus's hair is wet right now. She's going to catch pneumonia.
All right, guys.
Goodbye. So we have new health fads, but also we have this, another health fad, vegetarianism. Vegan starts to happen right now. Yeah. Sylvester Graham's new diet theories. This right here. It says Graha here. But it's Graham, and that's actually where graham cracker comes from.
Stop it.
So I was deep in some holes last night when I was researching all this stuff. I was like, oh my God. He was like the first vegetarian. No, he was the first one to promote like veganism.
That's
like
crazy.
You only eat fruits and vegetables and like that's it, and that was supposed to cure your ailments.
That's crazy. Okay, I did watch a TV show that will remain nameless, but is on Comedy Central occasionally with Derek Waters.
Ugh,
And they had one
my
on
fave.
the development of Kellogg's cereal.
Yes.
And Kellogg's cereal was originally a way to like cure diseases or
Yeah.
something.
Why is that a thing?
Why is that a thing?
I don't know.
That's
Like
crazy.
cornflakes are gonna fix your ailment.
Cornflakes.
I don't know, man.
Like, oh, I got a sore throat. Cornflakes.
Cornflakes, got it.
All right.
But
Come a
yeah,
long way.
like
Well, I mean, it's that, or we blame like the thunder god for something.
I mean, either
This is a
one.
step up.
Either one would work, I
What
guess.
was it, like Socrates or Galileo? No, it wasn't Galileo. Socrates
Zeus.
or Aristotle, somebody, they were like, use food to cure oneself,
There you go.
right? Sure.
Now we got graham crackers. Here we
Graham
go.
crackers.
So yeah, ways to cure your ailments: wrapping yourself in sheets, not eating meat. You know,
At the same time.
these things work. And also the big thing was phrenology was going to be that's head shape. Your head shape is going to be an indicator of how you will perform in life. Smaller heads equal less knowledge, less character development, and if you had got a big old noggin on your shoulders, you're going to do better in life.
And we're going to come back to this.
We're going to circle back around.
Yeah,
here.
like particularly during like World War One, we're using things like this for very racist reasons.
Super racist.
Because this phrenology is based off of Caucasian bodies.
Right. And so when we look at different groups of people, their head shape, their forehead shape, is not going to be indicative of much intelligence in our phrenology heads right now.
Yeah, crazy. All right, next.
Yep.
Here we go.
Oh, here's my fave little picture here. The drunkard's progress. Teetotalers. Is that what it's called? Teetotaler. These are the steps from being an upstanding white male individual to just losing it because of alcohol.
I mean, look at how they're dressed, right? He's dressed very fancy, like.
Very fancy.
And that poor lady and her kid underneath, she's like, why?
Why my
did I
husband?
marry this guy?
Because
He's
look at
spending all the money.
step 7, something by friends. He's like been abandoned by his friends. What does that say? Desperation and crime is step 8.
Forsaken by friends.
Forsaken.
I like it that it goes from the first one, which is like a glass with your friend,
And then you're
the
like,
last
"You're
step is
dead now."
attempted suicide. Like, it's intense.
It's
I
like
don't-
this
it's
is
crazy.
this was the these were the steps, man. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to keep this in for good reason. So we're still on medical science. How are we doing that? This is just we're moving from wrapping ourselves in sheets and eating only vegetables to actually looking into the causes of diseases and maybe trying to figure out some medications that we don't have that yet, but we're getting there.
I am most terrified of living in a world without antibiotics.
Right. I
I would have died
support.
like 10 times by now.
Yeah. 10 times. Died, come back. Died,
Yeah.
come back. Died, come back. I get sick constantly. I don't think there's been a podcast that we've recorded that I'm not coughing on.
Yeah, constant.
I am constantly
It's just
coughing.
like white noise to us
I'm
now.
sorry. Next year when our kids listen to these and I'm not sick, they're going to be like, what's wrong with
wrong
you?
with you?
All right. So anyway, education though. Horace Mann, this guy right here.
That's who our investing is through, Horace Mann
Yeah.
Corporation for teachers.
I used to have car insurance through Horace Mann. Yeah, it was mad cheap.
Yeah,
Oh, it was so now I've got Geico. Whatever.
Sorry. Moving on.
Anyway, so we did not have at the beginning of the 1800s, no like absolute public education system,
I
and
just
so
want
we
to pause
had
for a second. What would you all do with your time? Think about it. If it's summer,
you
all
don't
year
don't
long.
have Fortnite.
No
you
Fortnite.
you don't have school.
there's no organized sports yet.
There's no organized sports. Like, what are we gonna do?
Petty crime.
Exactly. Probably getting drunk because there were no
no
there were
rules
no rules, and I think that's why temperance exists.
Well, that one makes sense.
Okay.
I support that.
All right, so that would be really boring to me. When I have summers off, I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah,
what
I
are we
got a
doing?
couple good weeks of me and then I'm done.
I'm like always texting Miss Collazo and Miss Warabot and Miss Alonzo like, hey guys, What you
Let's
doing?
Start school early. No.
No.
So yeah, it's gotta be the worst, by the way, especially if you live out west and there's nothing there.
There's not even trees.
And no antibiotics. I just want
And
to add
you
that.
probably have cholera.
So there's no education system, statewide education systems, but that's all going to change, and it doesn't change because kids are bored, which is why I would do it. It changes because people like Horace Mann are like, if we don't have an educated electorate, how are we going to make this work?
Maintain? Yeah. So there's you can go ahead. There's all sorts of free time, number one, which leaves ample time to commit crimes. But also, there are some states that have education in them, like where Horace Mann is from. He's from Massachusetts. There is a lot of training going on. And so there's a lot of discrepancies that are happening in education in the South, like between the South especially and the North. All right, anyway, so that is going to bring Horace Mann to decide to reform the education system.
Look at that brow.
Look at, what is he looking at? His eyes are pointed upwards.
He's looking at knowledge.
Is he trying to look back in his brain? Is that what he's doing?
They say if you forget something, you should look up.
Yeah.
And that helps you remember.
So we have now education reform, and like Ms. Collazo said, it's because we're trying to, yeah, sure, we want to educate everybody. We want to get all the states on the same page with public education and like what they should be learning. But mostly it's to educate the electorate. And so people are making informed decisions. Side note, I got really mad at my gov class yesterday for not paying attention to me because I want them to make informed decisions.
Yeah. Educated electorate.
What else am I here for?
U.S. literacy rate highest in the world.
Yeah.
Nailed it,
because
America.
of this guy who's looking towards the sky, looking towards knowledge.
And part of this also, benevolent empire, right? Okay.
That, you want me to talk
Yeah,
about?
because I don't know what that means. I mean, I understand the words, I just...
Benevolent means, no, I'm just kidding. So this is, eventually we move from like, here's what you should learn across, are there birds outside? Eventually we should move from all like everybody learns this math, everybody learns this English, everyone learns this science. Just kidding, science doesn't matter in the 1800s. And you're wrapping yourself in a blanket instead of like actually paying attention to science. But we move from here's what you should learn to also like branching out and creating institutions for people who are handicapped. Eventually what is going to come from this benevolent empire are things like your 504s, your IEPs, differentiated instruction for people who maybe learn a little bit different. So we're not just educating people to like teach you 2 + 2 = 4. We're also like making things easier for people who maybe don't have the same the regular learning requirements. Maybe they need a little bit extra. So, oops. So that's that. Okay, I accidentally clicked forward, but Ms. Collazo has something to add to the education slide.
Yeah, I'm back. So, sorry, I was out for a half second. All right, so one of the things that I wanted to mention was that when we look at this attempt to educate the population, there's another side to education that has like a darker tone to it.
Ominous.
Yeah, the market revolution and how it changes society, and it makes society, because of capitalism, more into the haves and have-nots at this moment. It's going to get much, much worse before it gets better. Kind of foreshadowing to the industrial era, robber barons and all. But because we see this difference in classes, like the industrial workers versus the owners, there are attempts to educate individuals in the way that they should be happy in their station in life, and they shouldn't challenge it. Now, there's a book or like an essay or whatever that they read called the McGuffey Reader, McGuffy, McGuffey Reader. And it basically is like, Johnny's a poor kid, but Johnny's happy about it. And it just kind of continually says like, yeah, you're broke, but
it's okay.
No big
Live
deal.
your life.
Don't be mad about it. Being mad isn't any fun. So that's one way we're educating individuals, but sometimes in a kind of interesting, dark way. So.
All right, so last but not least,
Rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is a big idea for asylums for mental health, for prisons. We have the Pennsylvania and Auburn system.
Yeah.
And also for prostitution.
Come on.
Doesn't work, though.
No.
They decided that prostitutes were prostitutes because they didn't know how to cook and clean. Shut the door.
Don't
Stop
shame
it.
them like that.
Shit, they can cook a mean chicken.
I'm sure.
Some of them. All right. So the asylum movement. So basically, we have to conceive.
Yeah, you wrote down her name too. I was like, why isn't it on here?
It's so weird, right?
It's weird.
It's SFI. Where is it? So we have prison systems where everybody who is outside of the basic ideas of like societal standards of what normal is. We've got juvenile delinquents. We have hardened criminals that are adults. We have mentally ill individuals as well. And that's a very sad place to be for the kids. I mean,
They're
you're a
just
kid. You had too much free time.
Education would help that.
That would help that.
Thank you, Horseman.
Mentally ill need rehabilitation and care in asylums. And
But we can't just shove them in a dark
can't do
room
that.
and then be like, sorry that you're mentally ill, but we're going to be out here doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
So,
So we're going to change all that. The big lady is Dorothea Dix, D-I-X. She goes into an institution at one point. There's up in Massachusetts, there is an institution, like there are asylums that are separate. And she goes into one, like voluntarily is like, hey, listen, I'm a crazy lady. Let me sign up.
she was like undercover work.
Yeah. And
She voluntarily was like, I'm crazy. Put me in here. Which maybe she was crazy for doing that.
Man, she's committed or something. Get it?
Committed?
All right. So she basically chronicles her experiences there and how awful it is. And I'm not talking like, oh, they shamed the mentally ill. Like
No.
they would put them naked in a metal cage, spray them with water, and let them sit there for 24 hours.
Guess what? More water therapy.
More water therapy.
Why is this a
What
thing?
is the deal with water therapy?
What did they think that water would do?
Gosh.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's like
They don't
something
take
just
baths
about-
but once a week, but,
Right. But
here we are, we're
there's
sitting
a
in wet
realness.
sheets for every day.
So she comes out and she tells the Massachusetts state legislature about all the horrible things. And there's some change. I mean, I can't say that everything changed.
No, because it's still the 1800s.
And she's a female. And
Right.
it's local. She's thinking globally, acting locally.
Amen, sister.
All right. Prison reform. Guys, it's Halloween, Eastern State Penitentiary. Most haunted prison in the world.
All right, pause this. We're gonna go.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
Well, we were going to go to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And we could have gone.
Y'all, my kids didn't sign up though at Miss Knowles' class.
So prison systems, we have two views of reform of like, okay, you get inmates into your prison. What are you going to do to like help them?
Help them.
Because going to prison is the punishment. And when the punishment ends, which for most people it will, what happens?
Right. We want to move from like just being like, you're punished, we'll see you in 10, 20 years, to like, here's how we're going to rehabilitate you
Get you back out
instead
there.
and get you into society, which is like, I mean, that's what we should be doing from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, how do we stop the
It
be
costs
part of the
money.
solution? Yeah.
That's the problem. It costs money to rehabilitate, and a lot of people are like, well,
You
you
need
choose
taxes.
to make these decisions.
Yeah.
And so you don't get to be rehabilitated, you get to get locked up.
But what's the underlying issue? Probably something with mom and dad.
Probably a mom and dad issue.
Probably, yeah.
So we have two different types of prison reform systems. One is called the Pennsylvania system. Do not get caught up with the terms in terms, like the Democrats are in the South and the Whigs are in the North. There's a lot of crossover at this point. So Pennsylvania system is the one supported by Democrats. It is cheap. It requires very little rehabilitation. And by that, I mean no rehabilitation. You get locked up in a jail cell until your time is done, and then you get out.
Yep.
Done. And then you have the Auburn system, not associated with Auburn, Alabama. But-
No, it's different. It's not.
And the Auburn system is costly. It's all about like, yeah, you did something wrong. Let's teach you
Let's
a
curb
job
that behavior.
skill
Yeah.
and keep you busy during the day so you don't want to.
Keeping you busy during the day.
It's all about
That's why
keeping
we're
busy.
here.
We're such busybodies, guys. We're the most busybody people ever.
Right.
So the Auburn system is expensive. It's supported by the Whigs. That's it.
Yeah. If it's expensive, it's supported by the Whigs for
Right.
sure. So I think that's
I
it.
feel like that's it. I feel like, this is our first step. It's largely done by individuals, which is something we have to keep in mind because later on we're going to see the federal government get involved.
Yeah. You may be
Get things
thinking,
change.
Isn't there a lot of women's stuff going on? Isn't there a lot of anti-slavery stuff going on? Oh, yes. That's far too important to leave it up to you
That
to listen
and
to.
this would be a 3-hour tour
Yeah.
to be on this.
3-hour tour.
This would be too long of a PowerPoint, so.
So we'll talk about that in class, and we're going to leave you with
A man
who
who sang about trying to change himself. Like he's a wig.
he's a wig. All right, here we go. All right. Just some more.
Turned up the collar on my favorite winter coat. This wind is blowing my
All right. Bye,
All
kids.
right, guys.
I see the kids in the street without a